The war room fell silent as Bolthar stood up from his command throne. His massive shadow stretched across the strategic map table. The 7 other generals watched their leader with respect and fear. Bolthar had led more successful conquests than any high commander before him. "Tell me more about these humans," Bolthar ordered. His voice was deep and scratchy, like rocks grinding together. Captain Hiobin stepped forward into the light. The young officer's green exoskeleton had not yet darkened with age. His left antenna was bent from a past battle, marking him as a survivor. They arrived in Sector 89 about 30 rotations ago. Their ships are small but fast. They built their colony very quickly on the 3rd moon of Velter. They seem to need special suits to breathe outside their habitats. General Thack laughed, a clicking sound that echoed in the chamber. "Weak creatures who cannot even breathe normal air. This will be our easiest victory yet." Bolthar raised one clawed hand for silence. Never judge an enemy by their appearance alone. That is the first lesson of war. He turned back to Captain Hiobin. "What weapons do they have?" "We observed energy weapons, Commander. Nothing that could penetrate our armor at range. They have no battle cruisers that we could see, just transport and mining vessels." Bolthar walked to the large window overlooking the capital city. Below, thousands of Kraxan moved through the streets. Workers with their blue shells, scientists with their yellow markings, and everywhere, the red-armored warriors who had made the Kraxan the most feared species in known space. The first races the Kraxan conquered had been easy targets. The peaceful Malorians surrendered after a single battle. The Vex fought hard but fell within a year. With each victory, the Kraxan fleet grew larger, their technology improved. They took the best from each conquered world and made it their own. "Show me these humans," Bolthar ordered. Hiobin pressed a button on his wrist device. The 3-dimensional image appeared above the war table. The gathered generals leaned forward to study the strange creatures. The humans stood on 2 legs, with no protective shell. Their skin looked soft and vulnerable. They had strange fur on top of their heads in different colors. They wore artificial coverings over their bodies. "They are so small," observed General Krav, the oldest warrior present, "not even reaching our shoulders. How do they fight?" "They work together well," Hiobin said. "They build machines to do hard work. They talk constantly to each other. They seem very social." Bolthar studied the images carefully. Something about these humans bothered him, though he couldn't say what. They looked weak, yet they had traveled between stars. They had no natural weapons, yet they had survived. "Did they detect your ship?" Bolthar asked. "No, Commander. We stayed hidden behind Velter's 2nd moon. Our scanners could watch them without being seen." Bolthar nodded. "Good. We will learn more before we strike." He turned to General Thack. "Prepare 3 battle cruisers. Take 2,000 warriors. But do not attack yet. I want to know more about these humans first." "Commander," Thack protested, "we don't need so many ships for such weak creatures." "Do as I command," Bolthar said quietly. His voice was soft, but every general in the room straightened. When Bolthar spoke softly, death often followed. Thack bowed deeply. "Yes, High Commander. The ships will be ready in 3 days." After the other generals left, only Captain Hiobin remained with Bolthar. The High Commander turned to the young officer. "There is something you did not say in front of the others. Tell me now." Hiobin looked nervous. "It may be nothing, Commander, but we observed something strange. The humans, they never stopped working. Even when our warriors would rest, the humans continued. They worked through their night cycle. Different humans would take over, but the work never stopped." Bolthar's antenna twitched with interest. "Never, never, Commander. And they built their colony in 1/5 the time our engineers would need. They worked fast, making mistakes but fixing them quickly. It was unusual." Bolthar watched the images of humans again. So small, so fragile, yet something about them made his warrior instincts alert. "You will join Thack's mission," Bolthar decided. Watch these humans carefully. Learn their weaknesses. When we strike, I want it to be perfect." Later that night, Bolthar visited the Hall of Victories. The massive building held trophies from every race the Kraxon had conquered. Weapons, armor, art, and technology filled the giant rooms. Each exhibit showed how the mighty Kraxon had defeated another species. Bolthar walked to the newest display. It showed the surrender of the Zenith Alliance, the last major power to fall to Kraxon might. Their leaders had knelt before Bolthar himself, giving up their freedom to save their lives. Soon, he thought, there would be a new display. Artifacts from Earth, the story of how the Kraxon conquered humanity. 3 days later, Bolthar watched from his private viewing platform as the 3 battle cruisers lifted off. Each ship carried hundreds of the best Kraxon warriors. Their red armor gleamed in the morning sunlight. Their weapons were charged and ready. Captain Heoben stood at attention beside General Thak on the lead ship. The young captain felt honored to be part of this mission. His discovery would lead to another great Kraxon victory. As the ships disappeared into the sky, Bolthar returned to his war room. He studied the images of humans again. Something still bothered him about these creatures. They seemed too weak to have achieved so much. "Computer," he said, "show me all data on human building techniques." The screen filled with videos of humans constructing their colony. Bolthar watched for hours, studying how they worked together, how they solved problems. "Interesting," he muttered to himself. "Very interesting." For the first time in many years, Bolthar felt a small twinge of uncertainty. These humans were different from any species the Kraxon had faced before. Not stronger, not more advanced, but different. But in the end, it would not matter. The Kraxon were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. These humans would soon learn that truth, just like all the others before them. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council shined with light from 1,000 stars. 50 different alien species sat in curved rows that rose high into the air. Some had scales, others had fur. Some floated in special tanks of liquid, while others needed masks to breathe the common air. Ambassador Gina Kim stood straight in her blue diplomatic uniform. This was her first time representing Earth before the full council. At 35 years old, she was the youngest human ambassador ever sent to such an important meeting. Her black hair was tied back neatly, and her dark eyes missed nothing. "The council will now hear from the human delegation," said Elder Voltrax, an ancient being with pale blue skin and 3 eyes. His voice echoed through the chamber. Gina stepped forward to speak, but a loud noise stopped her. The massive doors at the back of the hall swung open. Everyone turned to look. Many aliens moved back in their seats. Some made quiet, scared sounds. The Kraxon had arrived. 7 tall warriors in red armor marched into the hall. Their hard outer shells clicked against the floor with each step. Their leader stood in front, bigger than the others, with marks of battle on his shell. This was High Commander Bolthar. Elder Voltrax's 3 eyes blinked rapidly. "We welcome the Kraxon delegation," he said, his voice shaking slightly. Gina had studied the Kraxon for weeks before this meeting. She knew they ruled nearly 1/3 of the galaxy. They were fighters who respected only strength. They had never lost a war. "We will begin with the human request," Elder Voltrax continued. "The humans ask for formal recognition by the Council and trading rights with all member worlds." Bolthar stepped forward. His head nearly touched the high ceiling. He looked down at Gina as if she were an insect. "Who speaks for the humans?" he demanded. Gina stepped forward. "I do. I am Ambassador Gina Kim of Earth." The Kraxon leader made a sound like stones grinding together. It took Gina a moment to realize he was laughing. "This small creature speaks for humanity. Where are your warriors? Your battle leaders? On Earth, diplomats speak for our people," Gina explained calmly. "We believe words can be stronger than weapons." "Words are wind," Bolthar said. "The Kraxon have never seen humans in battle. You might be weak. You might run at the first sign of danger. Why should the council accept those who have not proven themselves? Ambassador Taewon, the older man who led the human delegation, moved to Gina's side. He had gray hair and 30 years of diplomatic experience. We have brought trade agreements that would benefit all council members, Taewon said. Earth has unique resources and technology to share. Bolthar turned to the council. The Kraxan object to human membership. They are untested. We know nothing of their worth. Gina kept her face calm, but inside she felt worry. The Kraxan could block Earth's application if they chose. Without council membership, humans would be alone in a dangerous galaxy. We come seeking friendship, not conflict, Gina said, her voice clear in the large room. Earth wishes to join the galactic community peacefully. Bolthar's compound eyes studied her. Peace is for the worthy. If humans want council membership, they must prove their value. The room went very quiet. Every alien watched the exchange between the small human woman and the massive Kraxan commander. We challenge humans to the trial of worthiness, Bolthar announced. A wave of surprised sounds filled the hall. Elder Voltrax rose from his seat, all three eyes wide with shock. The trial has not been invoked in generations, the elder said. Most who attempt it perish. This is most unusual. Gina had never heard of this trial. She looked at Taewon, who seemed equally surprised. What is this trial? She asked. An alien with green skin and 4 arms spoke up. It is an ancient tradition. Before the council existed, species would challenge each other to prove their right to speak as equals. It involves 3 tests: body, mind, and spirit. Few have passed all 3. Taewon leaned close to Gina's ear. This is a trap, he whispered. The Kraxan want to humiliate us, or worse, they want an excuse to attack Earth if we refuse their challenge. Gina thought quickly. Earth needed allies. They needed trade. Without council protection, they were vulnerable to any aggressive species, especially the Kraxan. How long do we have to consider this challenge? Gina asked Elder Voltrax. The tradition allows 1 day for reflection, the elder answered. Bolthar made that stone-grinding laugh again. Afraid already. Perhaps humans are as weak as they look. Gina felt anger rise inside her, but she kept her face calm. This was exactly what Bolthar wanted, to make humans look scared in front of the council. She studied the Kraxan leader. His posture showed pride. His voice carried certainty. He expected humans to back down. What would surprise him most? Ambassador Kim, Taewon warned in a low voice, we should discuss this with Earth Command before making any decision. But Gina had already decided. Sometimes diplomacy required bold moves. She stepped forward and looked directly into Bolthar's alien eyes. We do not need a day. Humans accept your challenge. The hall erupted in surprised voices. Even Bolthar seemed taken aback. Gina, Taewon whispered urgently. This is madness. We know nothing about this trial. But Gina kept her eyes on Bolthar. We accept with one condition, she continued. When humans pass your trial, the Kraxan will support our membership and trading rights. Bolthar leaned down until his face was close to hers. His breath smelled like metal. If you pass, he said. But no species has completed the trial in 500 years. Then humans will be the first, Gina replied. Elder Voltrax banged a ceremonial staff on the floor. It is decided. The trial of worthiness will commence in 3 days. Both parties have agreed to the terms. As the council meeting ended, representatives from many worlds approached the human delegation. Some offered sympathy. Others seemed impressed by human courage. A small alien with silver skin pulled Gina aside. I was there when the Zentari tried the trial, he said quietly. They were strong and clever. None survived. What exactly happens in these tests? Gina asked. The Kraxan designed them differently each time, but they always test the limits of body, mind, and spirit. And they are never fair. Later, in the private human quarters, Taewon confronted Gina. Do you realize what you've done? You've committed us to a trial that could get our people killed. If we had refused, we would have appeared weak, Gina explained. The Kraxon would have used that to block our membership forever. So instead, we face impossible challenges. Gina smiled. Not impossible, just difficult. And difficulty is something humans understand very well. That night, Gina sent a message to Earth explaining the situation. The reply came quickly. Choose your best team. Humanity is counting on you. As she looked out at the strange stars from her window, Gina thought about the risk she had taken. The Kraxon had never lost a war. They had conquered countless worlds. But they had never met humans before. Captain Junho wiped sweat from his eyes as he checked the oxygen levels in his suit. The heat on Kraxor Prime burned through his protective gear despite all their preparation. Around him, the 5 other members of his team fought to stay upright in the crushing gravity. The red sand stretched for miles in every direction. 3 suns blazed in the sky, turning the horizon into a line of fire. Oxygen was thin here, and the gravity pulled at their bodies like invisible hands trying to drag them down. Keep moving, Junho told his team through the radio. Remember your training. The Kraxon had chosen this world for the first trial, a test of physical endurance. Both teams had to cross 50 miles of desert carrying supply packs. No vehicles allowed, just bodies against the elements. 200 yards ahead, General Thak led his warriors across the sand. Their heavy exoskeletons gave them strength, but also trapped heat against their bodies. The humans will collapse within the first 10 miles. Thak had announced to the council observers before the trial began. These conditions will crush their fragile bodies. Junho's team had trained for 3 weeks before the trial. They had worn weighted suits and practiced in special rooms with increased gravity. It wasn't enough to make this easy, but it gave them a chance. 6 miles complete, reported Minju, the team's medical officer. She checked the vital signs on her wrist computer. Everyone's heart rate is elevated but stable. By mile 15, 2 of Thak's warriors had fallen behind. Their movements became slower as heat built up inside their shells. The Kraxon could not sweat like humans. They had no way to cool their bodies except to find shade. But there was no shade in this endless desert. At mile 23, Junho saw the first Kraxon collapse. The alien warrior fell face first into the sand, his body temperature too high to continue. Keep moving, ordered Thak, not looking back at his fallen soldier. Junho stopped. Minju, check on that warrior. Captain, that's not part of the trial, she reminded him. I don't care. We're not leaving anyone to die out here. Minju ran to the fallen Kraxon. She pulled out a small device from her pack and placed it on the warrior's shell. Cool mist sprayed out, bringing down the alien's temperature. The council observers watching through drone cameras murmured in surprise. No one had expected the humans to help their competitors. By mile 30, 3 more Kraxon had collapsed. Each time, the human team stopped to help. They shared their water purification technology, which pulled moisture from the air and cooled it. They sprayed the overheated aliens with cooling mist. Thak finally turned back when half his team could no longer move. Why are you helping us? He demanded. This is a competition. Junho looked up at the towering Kraxon general. Where I come from, we don't let others die when we can help. The humans completed the 50-mile journey with their entire team. Only Thak and 1 other Kraxon made it to the finish line. The first trial goes to the humans, announced the council elder through their communication devices. Back on the observation ship, Volthar watched the recordings with narrow eyes. They survived the heat and gravity, he said to his advisors. But they wasted energy helping our warriors. This makes no sense. Perhaps it is a strategy to make us lower our guard, suggested one advisor. Volthar wasn't sure. He had never seen anything like it before. The second trial took place 3 days later in a massive arena. This was a test of tactical combat, not to the death, but to submission. Each team had to capture the other's flag while defending their own. Lieutenant Subin led the human team this time. She was small even for a human, barely 5 feet tall. The Kraxon warriors laughed when they saw her. "This will be too easy," said one warrior. "We can simply step on her." But when the trial began, the Kraxon found themselves confused. Instead of charging forward as expected, the humans split into 3 groups and disappeared into the artificial landscape of the arena. The Kraxon relied on direct confrontation. Their strength and armor made them nearly unbeatable in hand-to-hand combat, but the humans never engaged directly. They set traps. They used decoys. They created distractions. When a Kraxon warrior charged, the humans would scatter, leading the alien into a prepared trap. They used the Kraxon's weight and momentum against them. "This is not proper combat," Thak shouted after falling into a pit dug by the humans. "Face us directly." Subin's voice came over the arena speakers. "In war, you use the advantages you have, not the ones you wish you had." Within 2 hours, the humans had captured the Kraxon flag without losing a single team member. The Kraxon had not even located the human base. "The second trial goes to the humans," the council elder announced. Bolthar crushed the armrest of his chair. "How?" he demanded. "They are weaker in every physical way." The final trial was set on Pyrrhus, a small volcanic moon. Each team had to retrieve a special crystal from the center of an active crater and return to their ship. This would test courage, determination, and quick thinking. Engineer Dahian led the human team this time. His specialty was solving problems with limited resources. Both teams landed on opposite sides of the moon. As they approached the central crater, a massive solar flare erupted from the nearby sun. The electromagnetic pulse disabled all electronic equipment, including both teams' ships and communication devices. At the same time, the volcanic activity increased. Rivers of lava began flowing down from the crater, cutting off escape routes. The Kraxon team found themselves trapped on a small island of solid rock as lava surrounded them on all sides. Their natural strength couldn't help them cross the molten rock. "Leave them," ordered Thak to the council observers who hovered safely above in a shielded ship. "Weakness deserves elimination." But on the other side of the crater, Dahian was already working. He and his team took apart their equipment, using metal panels from their packs and support rods from their portable shelter. They created a makeshift bridge strong enough to cross the lava flow. After reaching safety themselves, Dahian made a decision. "We're going back for the Kraxon," he told his team. "They wouldn't do the same for us," said one team member. "That's their choice. This is ours." The humans extended their bridge toward the trapped Kraxon. One by one, the alien warriors crossed to safety. The last one across was Thak himself, his shell scorched by heat. From the observation ship, Bolthar watched in stunned silence. "They saved warriors who would have conquered them," he said quietly. "Why?" The council elder standing beside him smiled. "Perhaps that is something you should ask them yourself." When all teams returned to the council station, Bolthar approached Dahian directly. "You risk your lives for warriors who would show you no mercy in battle," the Kraxon commander said. "Explain this." Dahian looked up at the towering alien. "Where I come from, the true measure of strength isn't how hard you can hit, but what you're willing to stand for. We couldn't leave you there to die, even if you would have left us." Bolthar's compound eyes studied the small human. For the first time in his long life, the Kraxon commander felt something he had never experienced before, doubt about his people's way of life. "The third trial," he announced to the waiting council, "goes to the humans, not for their speed or strength, but for showing a kind of courage the Kraxon have yet to understand." The deep space sensor station orbiting Jupiter picked up the first signs of the Vorax horde. At first, the technicians thought it was just noise in the system, but after 3 days of watching, there was no doubt. A massive swarm of creatures was moving through space, devouring everything in its path. "It's like nothing we've ever seen," said Commander Jaewu as he showed the sensor readings to the emergency council meeting. "The Vorax consume all organic matter, and use it to make more of themselves. They've already destroyed 2 uninhabited systems. The holographic map showed the path of the Horde. It would reach Kraxon territory in 30 days, then human space shortly after. Since the Trial of Worthiness, humans had gained membership in the Galactic Council. They had established trade routes with 12 species, including limited exchanges with the Kraxon. The relationship was not friendly, but it was respectful. Now both species faced extinction if the Vorax could not be stopped. The Council voted to create a joint command center on a space station at the edge of Kraxon space. Both humans and Kraxon would work together to find a solution. The command center was divided in half. On one side, Kraxon warriors planned battle strategies. On the other, humans analyzed data and ran simulations. Neither group mixed much with the other. High Commander Bolthar arrived on the 10th day. He entered the human section without warning, his massive frame making the doorway look small. "Show me what you know about these Vorax," he demanded. Ambassador Taiwan, who had been appointed military liaison, brought up the latest scans on the main screen. "The Horde is a single organism made up of billions of smaller units," Taiwan explained. "They move as one and share a hive mind. We believe they operate on instinct rather than intelligence." Bolthar studied the images. "How do they detect prey?" "They follow heat and energy signatures," said Mina, the human tactical officer. She was young but brilliant, with a special talent for understanding alien behavior patterns. "They're drawn to stars and planets with active cores." "Then our strategy is clear," Bolthar said. "We gather our fleet at this point." He jabbed a clawed finger at the map. "When the Vorax arrive, we attack with everything we have. The combined firepower of Kraxon and human ships will destroy them." Taiwan shook his head. "We've run simulations of a direct attack. The Vorax would absorb our first wave and grow stronger. Even with our combined forces, we would lose 80% of our ships and still fail to stop them." Bolthar's compound eyes flashed with anger. "You suggest we run? Hide? Let these mindless creatures enter our territory without a fight?" "No," said Taiwan calmly. "I suggest we use their nature against them." For the next hour, Taiwan explained the human plan. The Vorax followed heat and energy. They always chose the path of most resistance because resistance meant food. If a smaller force challenged them, they would change course to consume it. "We can use that behavior to redirect them," Taiwan concluded. "A small fleet can lead them away from populated systems and toward a trap." "And what trap could possibly hold such a swarm?" Bolthar asked. Mina stepped forward. "The sun in the Nelvar system. It's unstable and nearly ready to go supernova. If we can leave the Vorax there and trigger the explosion at the right moment, the entire Horde would be destroyed." Bolthar slammed his fist down on the table, cracking its surface. "Your defensive strategy is cowardice. Kraxum do not use tricks. We face our enemies directly. We must attack with our full strength." The room went quiet. The human staff froze, waiting for Taiwan's response. "Commander Bolthar," Taiwan said quietly, "would you use a sword to kill a virus, or would you find the right medicine? The Vorax are not like us. They have no concept of honor or battle. They are a force of nature. We must treat them as such. Kraxon do not hide from battle." Bolthar insisted. Mina spoke up. "It's not hiding," she explained. "It's fighting smarter. We use the enemy's strength against them, just as humans did in the Trial of Worthiness." Bolthar remembered how the humans had defeated his warriors in the tactical trial. They had never engaged directly. Instead, they had used the Kraxon's own power against them. "Show me your full plan," he finally said. For the next 2 weeks, humans and Kraxon worked side by side. The plan required perfect timing and coordination between species who had rarely cooperated. When the Vorax horde appeared at the edge of Kraxon space, 50 ships waited, 30 Kraxon battle cruisers and 20 human vessels. They formed a pattern in space, creating a wall of energy signatures to attract the horde's attention. "They've detected us," reported Captain Jinwoo from the lead human ship. "The Horde is changing course, just as predicted." "Begin Phase 2, ordered Bolfar from his command ship. The fleet broke formation, creating a path that led away from inhabited systems. The Vorax followed, drawn by the energy of the ship's engines. For 6 days, the fleet stayed just ahead of the Horde, leading it toward the Nelvar Sun. The Kraksun wanted to turn and fight at every moment, but they followed the plan. When they reached the Nelvar system, Minna's calculations proved correct. The Vorax sensed the dying sun's massive energy and moved toward it, ignoring the smaller ships. "Now we trigger the Nova," Taewon said. 20 human ships positioned themselves around the sun. They fired specially designed missiles deep into the star's core. The Kraksun ships formed a protective ring, destroying any Vorax units that tried to attack the more vulnerable human vessels. "All ships, maximum speed away from the blast zone," ordered Bolfar. The combined fleet retreated as the sun began to collapse. The Vorax horde, sensing the enormous energy release, swarmed toward it. The explosion wiped out every Vorax unit in the system. The light was so bright that sensors shut down temporarily. When systems came back online, scans showed no trace of the horde. The threat had been eliminated. In the aftermath, the Joint Command Center became a place of celebration. Humans and Kraksun alike shared in the victory. For the first time, they began to mingle, sharing stories and comparing battle tactics. Bolfar found Mina looking at the star map, studying the final battle reports. "Your plan worked perfectly," he admitted. "Not a single ship lost." Mina looked up at the massive Kraksun commander. "It was a combined plan. We needed your warriors' strength to protect our ships during the final phase. Neither of us could have succeeded alone." Bolfar was quiet for a moment. "Your people fight differently than any species we've encountered. Not with greater strength, but with alternatives. Humans survived on Earth by adapting, not dominating," Mina explained. "Our planet has thousands of species, many stronger or faster than us. We learned early that when you can't overpower a threat, you must outthink it." Bolfar considered her words. Throughout Kraksun history, they had relied on their natural strength and armor. They had never needed to find other ways to fight. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your approach," he said finally. Then, to the shock of every Kraksun in the room, Bolfar lowered his battle crest, the raised portion of his exoskeleton that protected his vital organs. It was a gesture never before offered to a physically weaker species. It meant respect, acknowledgement, even trust. "The Galactic Council records will show," Bolfar announced loudly, "that on this day, humans proved themselves worthy allies of the Kraksun Empire." Mina smiled, understanding the significance of the moment. "And the Earth records will show that the Kraksun proved themselves worthy allies of humanity." From across the room, Ambassador Taewon watched with satisfaction. This was more than just a military victory. It was the beginning of something new in the galaxy, a partnership between the most feared warriors and the most adaptable species ever encountered. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council looked very different from 5 years ago. Where once the different species sat apart from each other, now they mingled freely. The fear that had ruled for centuries was gone. In its place was something new, hope. Ambassador Gina Kim stood on the main platform. Her diplomatic uniform now had both human and Kraksun symbols on it. Beside her towered High Commander Bolfar, his red exoskeleton polished for the special day. Gina looked out at the faces watching them. 5 years ago, most of these species had been afraid of the Kraksun. Many had paid heavy taxes to avoid being conquered. Now they looked at the human Kraksun pair with interest instead of fear. "Today marks the 5th anniversary of the defeat of the Vorax horde," Gina began. Her voice carried through the hall. "What started as 2 rivals working together has grown into something much more important." The giant screen behind them showed images from the past 5 years. Humans and Kraksun working side by side, joint colonies on new worlds, trading ships moving freely between their systems. The Human Craxon Alliance proposes a united defense initiative, Jinnah announced. Any world that wishes to join will receive protection from both our fleets. No member world will ever stand alone against threats. Whispers filled the chamber. Many delegates leaned forward, surprised by the offer. No one had imagined such an alliance possible when humans first arrived in council space. Bolthar stepped forward. His deep voice rumbled through the hall. Craxum's strength and human innovation have proven an unbeatable combination, he said. We offer this protection to all worlds who join our cooperative. The council elder Voltrax rose from his seat. This is unprecedented. The Craxun have always stood apart, taking rather than giving. What has changed? Bolthar's compound eyes swept across the hall. We have learned that true power comes in many forms. The humans taught us that different kinds of strength, when combined, create something greater than either alone. After the speeches, 28 worlds signed the agreement to join the new cooperative. It was the largest alliance in galactic history. Later that day, crowds gathered to watch the opening of the 5th annual competition of excellence. This event had replaced the ancient trial of worthiness. Instead of testing species against each other, it brought them together in mixed teams. In the main arena, 4 teams prepared for the first challenge. Each team had members from 6 different species, including humans and Craxon. They wore matching uniforms with their team colors. Look at those young Craxon, Jinnah said to Bolthar as they watched from the leader's box. 5 years ago, they would have never taken orders from a human captain. Bolthar nodded. And 5 years ago, humans would have feared standing next to a Craxon warrior. The competition had changed many things. Young Craxon warriors now trained alongside human tacticians. They learned to value thinking and planning, not just strength. At the same time, human military academies taught Craxon battle disciplines. Humans became stronger, while Craxon became smarter. When the competition began, the teams faced challenges that tested both physical power and creative thinking. They had to work together, using each species' special abilities. It was nothing like the deadly trials of the past. I remember when you accepted our challenge, Bolthar said quietly to Jinnah. I thought we would crush you easily. Jinnah smiled. And I was terrified but couldn't show it. You were right to accept. It changed the course of history. After the first day of competition ended, Admiral Hunky walked onto the observation deck of the space station. From here, he could see ships from many worlds entering the joint spaceport. 5 years ago, this station had been a Craxon military base. Now it was the center of the cooperative. Hunky had been Captain Hyoben back then, the young officer who first discovered humans. Now he commanded Earth's entire fleet. His green exoskeleton had darkened with age, showing his experience. He was not alone on the deck. General Thack stood by the window, watching the same ships. Busy day, Hunky said, moving to stand beside his old rival. Thack nodded. More arrivals than ever before. The cooperative grows stronger each cycle. The 2 warriors had faced each other in the first trial 5 years ago. Thack had expected to win easily. Instead, the humans had helped his warriors when they collapsed from heat. That day had changed Thack's view of strength forever. Did you ever imagine this outcome when we first met? Hunky asked. Thack's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Never. We thought ourselves the galaxy's greatest warriors until we met humans. And what did you learn? That true strength isn't about who can hit hardest, but who can adapt fastest. Thack's mandibles formed the Craxon equivalent of a smile. Humans bent but never broke. We Craxon were too rigid. In the end, flexibility proved stronger than armor. Below them, the human ship docked next to a Craxon cruiser. Crews from both vessels greeted each other without fear. My son enters the Warrior Academy next cycle, Thack said. He will train with humans from the start. His generation will not know the old ways of isolation. And human children now play games pretending to be Craxon heroes, Hunky replied. The barriers between us fall more each day. In the distance, a new ship appeared. It was designed by both species together. human technology with Kraxon durability. It was faster and stronger than anything either species had built alone. The first of the Guardian class, Thax said proudly, built to protect, not conquer. That night, a great celebration filled the station. Beings from 30 different worlds ate, drank, and shared stories together. In one corner, young Kraxon warriors listened to human veterans tell tales of Earth's ancient battles. In another, human scientists studied Kraxon art with fascination. Ambassador Gina found a quiet moment to slip away to her quarters. On her desk sat a small plant from Earth, an oak seedling. Beside it stood a Kraxon battle shield, given to her by Bolthar after the Vorax victory. Different kinds of strength, she whispered, touching both items. The tree bent with the wind but grew stronger each year. The shield was hard and unyielding, protecting against direct attacks. Together, they represented the new galactic order. Not one species ruling over others, but many working together, each contributing their unique strengths. In the vastness of space,